Thank you. And we wanted to just share just a couple of groundings of who we are. So some of you uh, have done some work with us. Some of you have had just like limited interaction, and some of you we have talked with, but for the purpose of this time together, just sort of grounding a little bit on our mission. Um, and one of the things that have been just a beautiful place for learning and growth, personally and professionally for me, is this thinking of modeling, and we incorporate that very much in our mission, and we inspire to continue to be learning and growing in that place, and also invite our partners to be like, what does it look like to begin modeling the work that you wanted to see, the people that you wanted to be, and the organization that you want to become. So we say that modeling in other ways possible as a means to liberation, as means to transformation, as a means to create systems and structures that are built around racial equity and that inspire belonging for people. Our vision is that people, organizations, and systems transform their priorities, relationships, and practices and perspectives so that they are able to continually adapt and become equitable and responsible for all their constituents and stakeholders. And that's both as an internal practice and as an external practice. And you see there in the screen in all those beautiful colors is the values that we are both grounding ourselves in the work, the values that we offer to folks to engage. Um, and I'll lift one value that has coming up for me a lot, so much so that sometimes I feel like the fonts are just too small. I want them to be like largest, is around this individual and collective wellness. As we are in year 2 of the global pandemic, doing this work that is, a work that is, not not I wouldn't say describe as work like this soft place to be, and also navigating a global pandemic and experiencing the racialization of our personal experiences and also a collective experience in this country, and all the attacks that we just keep witnessing. Being in the space of wellness, centering wellness for me has been a place of growth and a place of centering and a place that, a North Star. So I want to offer that to you all. The next thing that, in around grounding who we are is our approach. And the way we frame it is that there's so many organizations that are doing this work, and they're, some of them are friends of ours, some of them are people that we love and care and that we have done work with in the past. Some of them we learn from, some of them we learn together. And we're saying this to say there's multiple ways to do this work. What we're offering to folks that engage with us is our best thinking around our approach. We believe in the importance of the pedagogy of the work that we're doing. We believe that action is important. We believe that creating learning space is important. We believe that being unapologetic about centering the work on race is critical. We believe that developing, learning, engaging, and growing a critical conscious around this work is necessary in order to have a critical analysis of what's going on. And we also wanted to make sure that although there is a lot of internal and individual practice that we engage folks with and we model for folks, that it's in order for us to move from where we are, we do need a collective action around systems change. So in the screen there, you see some of the ways in which we approach the work, and a little bit of like what we think that sets us apart from other folks. We are very much relationship focused. We do that in the way that we talk about who we engage with. We create learning spaces together. We are cooperative, so we have a very flat hierarchical structure. We are constantly sharing, and we believe in the democratization of the work and the learning. So there's a lot of of resources that we share with folks, and we just ask them to, like, yes, go ahead and share with others. And we also come from lots of different backgrounds. I think that is another thing that sets us apart from other folks. So I myself have academic background in psychology, human services, and education. Colleen has a background in nonprofit and cross-cultural communication. We have lawyers, we have folks in public health. We have, a pretty, and between those folks, there's multiple ways in which folks have navigated this work in different industries and different landscapes. But the essence also is always to ground in this vision of belonging and liberation and transformation. And what does it look like to engage in those practices in a sustainable way? We don't believe that it's necessary for or that partners should be in this long-term 10-year relationships with us. That's not the goal. The goal is that we set you up, we create a plan, and we work with you around sustainability. And when you get to the next phase, we may engage with you again for different things and different ways of working. But the goal is that we are supporting the organizational vision around transformation and centering racial equity. So I'll pause here, and then I'll pass it to you, Colleen, if anything else around this that you want to wrap up, and then you can move us to the next part of our conversation.
Thanks, Ananda. I don't think I have anything else here, so I'm just going to keep moving along. And what we wanted to do next is just share a little bit about this kind of specific co-learning opportunity that we're going to be offering for the first time this spring, and just explain kind of what's part of that package, and go into a little bit of detail about that. And then, of course, we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. But I wanted to start by sharing kind of why we're doing this. So some of you on this call have been to trainings with Ananda and I, or some combination of us and other members of the collective. And so for those of you know, what we've done in the past is we've partnered with specific organizations to deliver training and to work with them on different kind of projects and assessment. And what we realized are a few different things. One is there were always some smaller organizations that couldn't really afford to work with us in that capacity. And so we wanted to create an option for them to be able to send, smaller teams for, significantly reduced pricing, so that we could be more open to a variety of size of organizations. The other thing we were realizing is that now that Nina's in its, third year, and we've kind of been through the whole first phase with a number of our partners. A lot of our partners were saying, this was great. And they do feel, like Ananda said, like, they've built up their muscles in order to continue to do this work. But then as they bring in new staff or new board, they wanted to think of a way to kind of continue to make sure that the frame that was embedded in their organizations is, kind of continuing as part of the onboarding process. And so we also were hoping that this might be responsive, particularly to partners who had been through this and want to continue to offer it to incoming staff or volunteers or board members. So just so you know, that's kind of like what was the thinking behind putting this together. And so you'll see we've created a couple of tracks within it, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, but one of them specifically is a board track, and it's for this exact reason. We wanted organizations that invested in a partnership with us for a year or two to be able to continue to send incoming board members through a process like this. So we do have some specialized learning for executive leadership and board members at this point, but we also have, it is set up so that really anybody at any level in an organization would be able to come. It is set up in such a way that we're hoping organizations are able to send a team, ideally 3 or more. It can we won't say no if there's only one person coming or two people coming, but it's set up in such a way that there's going to be some work in between sessions. And ideally, if you have a small team from your organization coming together, I think that'll help with the organizational sustainability piece, which is what we're working on pretty much with all of our projects at NINA. So if you or your organization were to send a team to this co-learning series, there's a handful of things that are offered. So the first thing, and the thing we kind of led off with, is we'll have 4 live virtual co-learning sessions that Ananda and I would be co-facilitating those sessions. They are currently scheduled for the first Wednesday of the month, March through June. So our last session would be June 1st. And so we're going to just talk a little bit about what each session covers, so that you have a sense of kind of the scope of the trainings. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the other parts of the project. And so our first session, which would be the session in March, is what we refer to as our co-create session. In this session, we're really looking at co-creating values, guidelines, and agreements between the members of the co-learning community. And this is something that we see as really important to the co-learning, but also as modeling something that they can bring back to the organization. And so a lot of the work that we do, we'll be sharing tools and resources that your folks from your organization can bring back and use with other teams at the organization or share back. So so this session especially will have a lot of community building and really set the stage for how we're going to do our work together. And then we'll also kind of do some level setting around what are the core concepts that we use in this work, just to kind of get everybody on the same page. So that would be the March session. And then the April session is the decolonize session. And we maybe should have said at the beginning, NINA has these kind of 4 pillars that we use for all of our work that kind of undergird our philosophy. And so each of these is one of the kind of 4 pillars of our kind of theory of change, basically. And so so decolonize in this process is really learning about the things that many of us weren't taught in school. So it's really kind of the history lesson of all of these. It's the one that is going to be the most kind of concrete information that we'll be sharing. So this one will have information people can bring back to their organization, but it is probably a more content heavy session than all of the other ones. But by the end of the session, folks will have an understanding, like obviously it's 2 hours, right? So it's a very much like an overview understanding of the historic and current structures around racism and racial hierarchy. And then we'll kind of go a little bit deeper with some of the core concepts that we introduced in the first session. And we'll draw the line between this and the work we're doing today. So how is this, all of our history kind of playing into what we're seeing in our communities and organizations today? I will say, in full transparency, this is kind of generally the heaviest one, but also sometimes the most transformative, because it's oftentimes information that many of us did not know before. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ananda to share with you about the next 2 sessions that are part of the series.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's important to add to what Colleen just shared is that throughout the process, there is a lot of a very robust pre-learning opportunity for folks and post-learning opportunity for folks. And they're coming from a multimedia perspective. So there's podcasts, there is articles, there is, short stories, sometimes case studies, videos, longer films. So, the goal is that folks that are attending the virtual co-learning, the virtual learning community, is both learning, but also learning from this lens of leading. Like, what does it look like to bring back to your team, to your larger team? What does it look like to plan along with your team that capacity building internally? So the next couple of learnings build on the co-creation and the decolonize, and the deconstruct is our thinking around what does it look like to have a deeper understanding of this terminology that has become so well publicized without a lot of context, which is white supremacy and white supremacy culture specifically. When we think about white supremacy, most people in the US think about extreme examples. So what does it look like to be able to learn the language, to practice the language of speaking to the cultural aspects of white supremacy, and to identify what is harmful and begin doing the internal work around practicing what does it look like, identifying, and then addressing it. And then what does it look like to institutionalize in an organization? And then, exploring the conditions that are needed to do that internal work and the organizational work when you're doing change and transformative work. So much of this component of this time of the learning community, we're going to be talking about what does it look like to have to move towards becoming an anti-racist organization. What does it mean for your board? What does it mean for you and your team? And what does it mean for the organization that is saying that or stating that that's where they want it to be? And the other piece that is important around this work is that we also share a pretty intentional transformational change approach. So change is becoming intentional, change is becoming planned versus just something that happens or something collateral damage to an initiative. And that changes for sustainability. The last pillar that we would like to share with you is collaborate. We don't believe that this work can be done in by single individuals of this organization. And I know I have spoken to a few of you about this. We actually discourage every organization that try to put that one person in an organization in charge of the entire change process and to dismantle white supremacy in the organization, in particular if the organization is predominantly white. So we give a lot of tools, and we have a lot of intention around understanding what is collaboration looks like, around language, around the internal communication, around external communication. So how do we begin to practice? How to begin to also interrupt language and practices that marginalize folks or also push folks away from the space of collaboration. And how do we bring folks together? There's so much needed resilience around doing this work, but not just the resilience of people, because people have been resilient. Is the resilience of the organization to engage into conflict, to engage into change, to engage to listen, and to be able to address this in a collaborative fashion versus us versus them. And then developing strategies for accountability. So what does it look like not to engage in a harmful accountability, the accountability of a transactional accountability, but an accountability that centers humanity, that centers that we're likely to fail, we're likely to make mistakes, and we're going to still be here, we're going to still collaborate, and we needed to continue to move towards becoming anti-racist. I'll pass it back to you, Colleen.
All right, thanks, Ananda. So we're almost done with our slides, so we'll stop for questions in just a moment, but just wanted to share two more quick things with you. So we started off by saying we'll have those 4 co-learning sessions that Ananda and I will be co-facilitating. In addition to that, we also have 2 monthly discussion sessions that are part of the package. Those are scheduled for the 3rd Wednesday of the month. So if we didn't have 5 Wednesdays in March, this would be an every other Wednesday kind of situation. But because of the 5th Wednesday, it's not exactly that, but basically it's the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of the month in March, April, and May. And then in June, it's just the final co-learning on June 1st. And then part of the package also includes one organization-specific coaching session. So that is not planned for a particular day. It'll be set up with you and your organization to really talk about next steps. You know, what do you want to do coming out of this? What questions do you have coming out of it? And so that one will be very specific to the team from your organization that's been coming through the process together. So those ones are, you know, a little bit more flexible based really on the needs of the groups. And then the last part of the series that is an option, I'm going to pass it back to Ananda to share about, and then we'll pause and chat for a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Colleen. So one of the, after working with so many partners, we noticed particular challenges that were arising when in regards to supporting staff of color, in particular Black, Indigenous, and staff that identify as people of color. And we wanted to create a space where we begin developing some understanding of what is it like to be a person of color doing this work. What is it like when we get, you know, we often are harmed in an organization. What does it look like for leaders in organizations that identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color? And then begin to unpack what does it look like and how can we have affinity, racialized affinity spaces in order to find that support, find that growth, find that learning, increasing retention, increasing your ways of learning and ways of understanding how you navigate the organization, and developing the strategies to speak to what I was mentioning earlier around centering one's wellness. So this is for all people. Everyone needs wellness. But when a person of color is at an organization that is going through that change in particular, we notice that a lot of harm can happen and a lot of conflict can happen. And we often wanted to see this conflict in absence of race. And what we are inviting folks to do is like, let's just make sure that race is very much part of the conversation and how people are experiencing those spaces. And then what does it look like for organizations to begin contemplating implementation of affinity spaces in their own organization, whether that's coming from the organization or whether it's a grassroots effort. So we're offering that on the fourth Wednesday of the month in the evening times as well.
All right. Do you want me to keep recording, Ananda, or should I turn it off?
Let's turn it off.
Okay.
And we'll send the slide deck to all of you so you can see. And then if you want